I'm going to show you a more advanced and preferred way to create a button hierarchy. So first we're going to start with our text tool, and I'm going to click and drag, and I'll just type primary. I'm going to make sure that it has all the typography characteristics that I want from it, size 16, Helvetica, perfect. Now, one thing that I see a lot is sometimes there's this extra space in your text box. You can actually crop that automatically in Figma. So what you could do is, with the text box selected, in the bottom right, there's this anchor point, this little square. If I hover over it, I get an arrow. I'm going to double click. And what it does is it trims it to the actual text. Let me show you that again. Bottom right anchor point, double click, trim. That's going to be important for this method because we're using something called auto layout. So to use auto layout, what I'm going to do is have my text box selected. Make sure it's not highlighted, just selected. On my keyboard, I'm going to click Shift A. Shift A. And what that did was it added this box around my text and it made it a frame. I'm going to go ahead and rename that frame to button. Now with the button frame selected, on the right hand side you'll notice that it says frame, position, auto layout. Now auto layout is the section that I want to focus on. This allows me to adjust my padding on my button and my alignment in my button, which is really, really helpful. I first want to put a fill because I need to add that black brand color to my button. So under fill, I'm going to select plus and move it to black. And then of course I need to select my text and make that legible, so make that white. But imagine now I wanted to adjust my padding, so I'm going to go ahead and select my button frame again. And under the auto layout panel, down here there are two boxes. This is the right and left padding, the horizontal padding, and this is the top and bottom padding, or the vertical padding. So I'm going to make the right and left 16 and the top and bottom 8. You can also adjust, so maybe you want your button to have curved edges instead of pointy edges. So with my button frame selected, down under appearance, which is right below auto layout, there's this box to the right, and this is at my corner radius. Right now it's set to 0, but I can adjust it to 8 and I get a nice corner. So I'll keep that there. Okay, so we have our primary button created. One thing I'm going to do now is use Figma's components feature. Now I talk a lot more about components in another video, but for buttons, how this works is I select my button frame. On the right hand side, find the share button and go down. You're going to see a little diamond icon, and if you hover over it, it says create component. I want you to click that. When you create a component, it now changes my outline or my selection from blue to purple. That's good. So we've created a component, now I need to create a variant. So I'm going to select my component, over on the right hand side, find the share button, go down, and I want you to find a diamond with a plus sign. A diamond with a plus sign. Now if I hover over that, it should say add variant. Go ahead and click it. If you notice, it did something kind of fancy here. It duplicated my button and it created this dotted outline. That's awesome. On the right hand side, it also added a property, and I could rename that property. So I'm going to rename that to secondary. All I need to do now is adjust the styles of my secondary button. So I'm going to say secondary. I'm going to have to adjust my frame since secondary went a little long. So I just drag that out. And then I'm going to adjust my styles. So I'm going to add a stroke, black, fill, white, and then my text, black. notice that when I typed secondary in this button, it retained my padding that I made on that primary button. That is one of the benefits of auto layout, is it should retain that padding. If it doesn't, then if you have it selected, go to auto layout. Under width and height, it should say hug and hug. Hug means that it's hugging the content, so if I type in that box, it'll retain my padding. I need to add another variant now for my tertiary button, so I'm going to select secondary, and underneath my secondary button on my canvas area, I should see a plus sign. I'm going to select that. So it duplicated my button again. On the right hand side, I'm going to change my variant to tertiary and adjust my styles. I'm going to go ahead and remove my fill, remove my stroke, double click on my text, and on the filters or type settings, I'm going to add an underline. Now again, branding specific, preference specific, but I'm going to just adjust my buttons to match width-wise to each other. Now, the benefit of going the advanced route is now these are reusable components in my file, which means on the left-hand side, above where it says pages, I'm going to find a word that says assets. I'm going to select assets. Now you're going to see an option that says all libraries created in this file. Go ahead and click created in this file. You'll see your button primary. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag that in. And if I have my primary selected on the right hand side where I added all those properties before, I can change it to secondary and I can change it to tertiary. So it's really easy to swap back and forth. Another benefit of going this route is, say you're working on a huge website and you have 100 pages and you have 100 instances of primary buttons on all of those pages. Your brand team comes to you and says, hey, we changed our brand colors. Our primary button is now blue. Can you make those adjustments? Instead of having to go individually to each page and change the button from black to blue, I go to my component. This is my sort of master component, my main component, and I select my primary and adjust that color. So I'm going to go to fill and put in whatever hex code is now my new blue, and watch that. Every instance of my primary button coming in is now the correct color. So it adjusts those things automatically. What that means is this component that I created needs to be saved somewhere so that I'm not adjusting this, by accident or using this by accident. You always want to pull in a button from your asset library whenever you want to use it on a page. That way it retains this consistency between the two.